Thank you, Mr. President. I would first like to thank the United States, the United Kingdom, and France for calling this overdue session. Carmel Gat was an occupational therapist from Tel Aviv. She was intending on beginning a master's degree in October. She loved travel, music, and meeting new people. Eden Yerushalmi was 24 years old, a vibrant young woman with so many friends and passions. She had two adoring sisters who looked up to her for everything. She was weighed just 36 kilograms when her body was found. Hirsch Goldberg Polin, an Israeli-American, was born in California and moved to Israel at age 7. He also loved traveling and music festivals and his soccer team, Hapoel Yerushalayim. He was working as a medic to save up for a trip to India. Alexander Lobanov, an Israeli-Russian, was holding onto the hope of meeting his second child with wife Michal, who gave birth while he was being held hostage, a child who will never meet his father. Almog Sarusi was a Ra'anana native who loved traveling around Israel in his white Jeep with his guitar and friends. He was a truly dedicated son, brother, and friend. Ori Danino saved many youngsters at the Nova Festival. He came back, turning his car around to go back and save lives. He loved nature and was a wonderful partner to Liel. These 6 beautiful, innocent, heroic souls were executed by Hamas after more than 330 days of being held captive, deprived of sleep, food, sunlight, the most basic necessities. They dreamt of seeing their loved ones again, parents, siblings, friends, their babies. Last week, Hamas terrorists executed all of them. They shot bullets in the back of each of their heads. Hirsch's mother, Rachel, spoke at his funeral on Monday, finding the only relief she could that her son was finally free. Think about that for a moment. A mother whose child has been murdered, finding comfort only in the thought that he would no longer suffer at the hands of Hamas, that he was beyond the reach of the monsters who are taking him. This is not just grief. It is an agony no one could comprehend. 101 human beings remain captive, their cries for mercy ignored by international indifference. For nearly a year, 334 days, they have been held in the darkness. No sign of life communicated. No access granted to the Red Cross. They were forgotten, left to endure evils that we can barely grasp. The ones who have fortunately returned have exposed the ongoing torment the hostages still suffer on a daily basis, ongoing atrocities. Amit Susana was dragged from her home by Hamas terrorists and thrown into a living hell. She was held in a child's bedroom, chained to the floor and at the mercy of her guard. He would enter the room, lift her shirt, touch her, grope her, and dehumanize her in every way imaginable. One morning, as she tried to wash herself chained in a bathroom, her guard stormed in, gun in hand, hitting her repeatedly, dragging her back to the bedroom where he forced himself on her. Amit was held for 55 days and nights before she was released. For others, this nightmare continues, day after day, night after night, with no hope. And Amit's story is not an isolated case. Mia Regev, another freed hostage, has testified that every woman held by Hamas has been sexually abused. Every single one. She testified, every woman there experiences some form of sexual harassment. It doesn't matter how you try to beautify or change it. Mia was held for 50 days, but there are women who have been held for much longer. Women who have suffered this torture for almost a year. Women who have been forgotten by the international community. And then there is Agam Goldstein Almog, who was held in a terror tunnel when she was 17 years old, after witnessing the murder of her father and older sister. In that tunnel, she encountered 6 other female hostages. These women told her how they were molested by armed men who entered the room where they were showering. Agam herself was told by a guard that she would live the rest of her life as a chained slave wife in Gaza. Mr. President, what is happening now is unprecedented. We hear many voices demanding that we halt our efforts, lay down our weapons, and question why we continue to fight Hamas in Gaza. The disconnect between the reality of October 7, the massacre, the abductions, and the current situation of the hostages in Gaza is impossible to comprehend. Many of you have forgotten why we are in Gaza. Perhaps you have forgotten, but we have not. We haven't forgotten. We remember the faces of the hostages, their families, and their pleas to rescue them. This disconnection allows some of you to behave as though October 7th never happened, as though there are no hostages, including babies, the Bivas family, and young girls in the hands of Hamas. We have not forgotten. Today, I am here to remind you and the world that we will never forget them. We will never abandon our sons, daughters, sisters, and brothers who are being tortured by monsters. We will never stop until they are brought home. If you truly cared for the Palestinian people and truly wanted to achieve an end to this war that Hamas started, you would officially draft and pass a resolution designating Hamas as a terrorist organization and condemning Hamas for their hostage-taking. Let me be clear. Israel is committed to bringing every one of these hostages home. It is our top priority. But make no mistake, the roadblock to their release is not Israel. It is Hamas, and only Hamas. 3 months ago, on May 27th, Israel, with the full backing of the United States, agreed to a hostage release deal. Hamas refused. Then, on August 16th, after the United States updated the deal framework, Israel once again agreed, and once again, Hamas refused. Even in recent days and hours, as Israel engaged in negotiations, Hamas has remained steadfast in its rejection of all proposals. And yet, the international community continues to direct its pressure at us, at Israel, as though we are the ones holding the hostages, as though we are the ones standing in the way of their freedom. After all, it is far easier to criticize a democratic government than to confront the reality of dealing with terrorists. The terrorists do not sit at this table to defend their actions, no. They have proxies, they have few proxies, they're apologists to do that for them. Where is your outrage? Where is your condemnation of Hamas for these atrocities? Hostage-taking is a violation of international humanitarian law, a violation of Security Council resolutions, including Resolution 2474. Hamas has violated 3 Council resolutions that called for the release of hostages. Yet, unless and until this Council condemns Hamas, pressures them, and designates them for what they are, a terrorist organization, it is failing its mandate. We often discuss in this chamber the involvement of UN agencies, the aid and support they are supplying to Gaza. But in these many sessions since October 7th, and this is the first time we dedicate an important session about the hostages, but in all those sessions, how many times you heard or you demand the Red Cross access the hostages? How many times has the WHO raised concerns for the health of the hostages? How many times has UNICEF called for aid to reach them? The double standard is unbearable. Our IDF soldiers risk their lives to rescue hostages. That's what we are doing. Jews, Muslims, and Christians alike. Take the brave rescue of an Israeli Bedouin hostage, Farhan Al-Qadi, by Israeli forces, a rescue that put our soldiers at great risk. Only in Israel would Jewish soldiers risk their lives to bring a Muslim Bedouin Israeli home to his family. Only in Israel would an Orthodox Jewish doctor treat him with the utmost care. Only in Israel his return is celebrated by Jews and Muslims alike. This is a contrast between us and Hamas. We value life. We pray for life. We fight to protect it, while Hamas despises life, using it as a tool for their twisted ideology. Today, Israel mourns the 6 murdered hostages, but our fight is far from over. There are still 101 hostages who remain in the clutches of Hamas, and we will not rest until they are brought home. I call on this council to direct its energy where it is most needed, to support Israel, pressure Hamas, and for once issue a clear and unequivocal condemnation of the barbaric terrorist organization that continues to hold innocent lives. I again thank the members of this council that have demonstrated their moral clarity and their humanity for the hostages. It is appreciated, but truthfully, it is not enough. Now is the time for action. Now is the time for the Security Council to adopt a clear and unequivocal resolution. This doesn't require long negotiations. This doesn't require deliberation. You have a moral obligation to adopt a simple resolution which would say the Security Council condemns Hamas, their atrocities, designates them as a terrorist organization, and demands the immediate release of the hostages. I cannot understand why all of you cannot raise your hands and vote for this language. Whoever cannot raise his hand in favor of this resolution must be honest and ask himself, what are you doing here? Very basic. This action is essential. This action is just. This action is moral. I thank you, Mr. President.